2023 regular season press conference number 1. We'll open up the floor for questions. Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, are you ready to name?
Yes, Dave. Indiana game, Kyle McCord will be the starter. And Devin Brown is going to play in the game. I think that Kyle has done a great job over the last 2 weeks of showing consistency. He's played very well in practice. But Devin also, throughout the body of the preseason, has shown that he deserves to play. So expect both of them to play. We have confidence in both of them. I think that's significant that we have two guys that we feel confident playing in a game. This is something that's a little uncharted territory for me, but you just go on what you see every day in practice. And I think that Kyle's consistency the last couple of weeks has allowed him to be the starter. He deserves that. But I also think Devin deserves to play in the game as well. So how much, all that's still to be determined, but we've at least come up with that conclusion here.
Follow-up, if someone would have told you, I don't know, maybe in spring, this is how it was going to turn out. It'd be so close to be playing both guys. Would you be pretty surprised?
I didn't have a lot of expectations other than I felt like both guys have a chance to be really good quarterbacks, and you just don't know. And when you start to create expectations, then maybe you can start to do things that can put you down a certain path. I decided not to do that. Even really stepped away a lot in the spring and kind of let it all play out. Been more involved this preseason. But pleased that we have at least two guys that we feel confident about going to play in this first game. And ultimately, we have to go win this game. It's a road game. It's a conference game against a very well-coached team. Got a lot of respect for Tom Allen and the way he does things. And this is going to be a real test for our team early on in the season.
Second row right, Bill Landis, the Rivals and the podcast.
Ryan, you said this is uncharted territory for you a little bit. So what do you rely on then as you try to formulate a plan to play two quarterbacks?
Well, I think the first thing is you just have to go watch them play in the game. And it's one thing, in practice you see certain things, but to get tackled and to move the team down the field and, finish off drives, do well on third down, do well in the red zone, that's going to continue to play itself out during the season. And there's been teams that have done this similar before. And, ultimately I told the guys when I met with them today that the goal is to go, win championships. And when the season's all said and done, the story is going to be written. What we can't do is ride the roller coaster every drive, every game. They both need each other right now, and I think that's great. They make each other better. I think the competition has made them better, and it's been back and forth. And so we'll kind of go into the game, each game with a plan, and then evaluate it after that. I think that's all we can do.
The idea of not riding the roller coaster, can that apply to the coaches as well? When you have two that can play, weighing like, oh, this doesn't look that good. Should I put the other guy in now? Like, how do you think that might go?
Well, I told both of those guys this isn't going to be a situation where, they need to be worried about getting quote unquote benched, being in the game. That's not the case. They have to go play through, some of that stuff. CJ kind of went through it his first couple games, and when he was here as a sophomore, and. You just don't know how it is going to play out. But all we can do is just do the best we can right now. Go win the first game is the goal. And how that looks, I don't know exactly how it's going to be. And then a week from now, we're in a different place. We have more to go on, a bigger sample size of in-game, and we go from there. I just don't have a crystal ball on this, and I'm not sure how it is going to shake out. But I think what we're doing is fair based on what we've seen this preseason.
Right behind him, Tony Gervin, Buckeye Hubble.
Ryan, quarterback position being different than any other position in terms of the transfer portal and things like that. Last week you said the winner, the tiebreaker, would be the guy that responds when his back is up against the wall. Kyle McCord being pushed by a younger guy at quarterback. If you get pushed by that younger guy and he goes past you, that's something significant. So to see him respond these last 2 weeks with that kind of pressure, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'm pleased with that. I think that is exactly how things shook out a little bit this preseason. I think that Devin made a real strong push about 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, and then Kyle responded with some really consistent play. And that was a good response. And that was, very encouraging. Now it's time to go play in games, though. And, we certainly have seen enough in practice to believe that both guys can perform in a game. And and now it's time to go put it on the field. And when you're in the game, you really get an idea of what is going on. In practice, you have controlled settings, and you try to make them as game-like as possible. But again, now time to go play.
Right next door, Rob Oliver, Columbus Dispatch.
You're part of a big coaching network. Have you talked to anybody about how this has worked? Have you been part of it? I don't know if Chip's been part of it or not. You plan to do that, just kind of pick the brain of somebody who's been through it?
I talked over years with different coaches, just because, quarterback play is something that obviously I've been a part of my whole life. And, you talk to different people about that, and, the theory of, if you don't have a starting quarterback, you don't have a quarterback. I mean, that wasn't the case for, Alabama when they had Tua and Jalen and Mac Jones. Ohio State attracts some of the best players in the country. And it all worked out great for them. That's one example. You think about the year when the national championship was won here most recently, they had 3 guys who played. You try to do the best you can. A good problem to have is when you have multiple guys you feel good about putting in the game. And I think the more we play in these games, the more we're going to see the strengths come through. And we'll just, on a weekly basis, try to do the best we can, put a game plan together that gives our team the best chance to win. And again, I see our receivers getting in rhythm. I see the offensive line getting in rhythm with both guys. If I didn't feel that, then I would step in. I think both guys have won the team, and I think they feel confident with them being in the game on Saturday.
You kind of comment on this. Is it fair, though, to say that in a perfect world, you'd have that one guy that would step forward? Just from a comfort level, maybe even as a coach?
I don't know. I mean, we'll see where we're at this point next week, but if that's the way it's been in the past, but that doesn't necessarily mean that has to be the way moving forward. And these things usually have a way of working themselves out, but, again, I think the best thing to do is to let them go play in a game and come back for air over the weekend.
Fourth row right, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Ryan, when you said that you want to play both, how do you try to navigate that going into game planning and letting Kyle get into a rhythm, but also making sure that you're going to get Devin in there, not interrupting Kyle's rhythm and allowing him to get into the flow of the game?
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest challenge, right? What you just mentioned, but we have to go play, and it isn't just about that drive. It isn't about anything else other than winning the game. And they're going to go get the plays. They're going to have the same game plan, and they just got to go put it on the field and go win the game. And I mean, certainly that part of it, I think, is a feel, is what's going on in the game. But both of them are going to have to be locked in on that and go from there.
Right behind him, Cameron T. Robinson, Athletic.
Real quick to clarify that, is for Kyle and Devin, is it, like you said, is it a feel on how they played, or are you talking about like split reps, or how are you?
We'll see how the week goes. Yeah, we'll kind of see how the preparation is, and then kind of decide from there.
What did Kyle do, like especially in the last week, that made you think like, okay, he's the guy who's going to start?
Again, the consistency. Yeah, he's been accurate in the passing game. He's done a good job with his reads, taking care of the football, and that's important with the surrounding cast that we have on offense, is to make the routine plays routinely and take care of the football, and ultimately lead the team down the field to score touchdowns, and he's done that. So that's why he's starting.
Far right, Tom Sperry, WBNS 10 TV.
Coach, no matter who it is, there'll be a rookie quarterback in there. What do you expect out of Indiana? And that's been a tough place to play over there. What do you think they try to do to disrupt the quarterback?
Well, the first thing is they have a very different team than they did last year. They've added a lot of new pieces, a lot of talent coming in, different little change up on the staff. And, we've been in dogfights with them early in the season before. And they're very well coached. So, we have to do a great job of adjusting to, some of the changes that they've made on both sides of the ball. But ultimately, it's going to come down to fundamentals, taking care of the football, tackling really well, hand placement, all the things that come into play in the first game, and handling the environment, going on the road for the first game, a conference game.
What's the guys, I mean, obviously they've gotten all the attention. How have they handled all that, though? Because you played it, you understand that at Ohio State, that's the position everyone talks about, and every eye is going to be on whoever's in there.
Yeah, and every play is going to be criticized or applauded, and that's but when you come here, that's part of the deal. And I shared with them both that the great thing is they both get an opportunity to be the quarterback at Ohio State with an unbelievable team surrounding them. So that's the exciting part of it. And that's what they want. That's, when they decided to come to Ohio State, they knew that it wasn't going to be easy, and they're fighting tooth and nail to get on the field, and so that's the exciting part of it. But yeah, I mean that's what comes with being an Ohio State quarterback, and they know that, and that's why they're here.
Right behind him, Clay Hall, WSYX.
Ron, do you feel, in terms of the big plays you allowed defensively in those last 2 games, do you feel like that's been fixed? Do you feel confident in Noel's approach this year? I mean, they broke your back. I mean, you might have won it all. So.
Right. Well documented, and it's something that when you look at the season, that was an area that stuck out like a sore thumb, an area that needed to get addressed. We spent a lot of time on that. The answer will be, we get to the field on Saturday, and then as the season, shakes out. So we know that that's something that hurt us last year and did cost us. So you won't know until you get into a game. That's the test. I say that all the time, is that you prepare for tests, in any kind of subject you have here in college. It's the same thing when you get to the game on Saturday. You find out what your preparation was like and if it worked. But as you know, that's something that has been, something we've really focused on defense.
Right behind him, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
I'm just curious if, in this situation, have you had a 2-quarterback plan all along, like in the door or whatever, or did you have to come up with one specifically for this scenario?
No, didn't really have an expectation of what this would look like. We're getting the guys as many reps as we possibly can. I guess the only adjustment that I made was, and that we made as a staff, was going to the 2 fields where we could get more reps. So when we would usually go 1s, 2s, and 3s, we were going really 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s, and getting, I think, 48 plays in a 2-period session, which was great. And so the more reps you get, the better, the more body of work you have, and both of these guys need reps. So that was really the only thing that we changed during the preseason. The rest of it we've just done like we normally do.
Third row right, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
I know last week when we talked to you, you said you were looking for a sizable gap to name that starter. I guess, has what Kyle's done, would you call that a sizable gap? Is that a medium gap? I guess, how would you define that gap?
I think it's enough to be named the starter, and then they're both going to play. So, yeah, I think, it's not a sizable gap, but it's enough to be the named starter.
And then I want to ask, kind of piggyback on what Spencer said, these guys are still going to be evaluated, obviously, and they're still competing for ultimately the starting job. Things can still change. How do you guard against these guys maybe playing outside of themselves, or, trying to do too much in a game, trying to put something on the field that maybe ultimately flip-flops the situation?
Yeah, to talk about it and make sure that they understand that that's not going to be the case, that this is something that's ongoing, and that we're looking at this through this season. So at some point the season's going to be over, and we're going to look back on this year. And sometimes it's hard to do it in that manner. We all want to look right now and see what's going to happen with the whole season, and react to what's going on right now. But if you can take a step back and think about, okay, at some point January is going to be here, and we get to January, we're going to look back on this season, and there's going to be a whole bunch of football played, no matter how it shakes out. And so that's not easy to do, but it's something that we've talked about so that they understand that this isn't about one player, one drive. This is about the entire season. And again, not easy to do, but we're definitely talking to them about that so that they understand that it's not about one play or one drive.
Third row left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, have you guys decided who's going to handle the kicking duties on Saturday?
Jaden will handle the kicking duties, yeah.
What led to that decision?
Yeah, just overall consistency again. We chart everything, and he's done a really good job. In the spring, he did a nice job kicking off for us last year. And, his overall consistency has, allowed him to be the starter, and we just really go off of the chart, how many kicks have you made in this area? How many kicks have you made in this area? We've had live situations. What have those been like? We look at him in the stadium. We look at him in practice, kind of chart everything and do the best we can. And so, he's won that job.
Just to clarify, he'll be doing everything, field goals and kickoffs?
Yes, both of those, yep.
Far left, Joe Nugent, WCMH.
How significant is the challenge in week 1 preparing for a team that has 23 transfers and trying to find film on those guys?
Yeah, we have Billy Homer in-house who does all the evaluating of our transfer portal guys. And so, he goes through and does the best he can to evaluate the film based on what he sees at other schools. But like you said, it's hard to figure out how the team's going to look when you have so many new faces. So what you do is you try to combine what you've seen in the past. There's certainly, Matt Guerreri's a new coordinator there. They have new pieces on their staff. They have new players. So there's a lot in there. And you have to have contingency plans. That's part of, coming out of the gates with a conference, road game with all these things into consideration. There's some unknowns. But that's common to almost every season. And like Indiana, we have a new quarterback here, new quarterbacks playing, and so what is that going to look like? And you have to be able to adjust in game.
Front row left, Mitch Stacy, Associated Press.
Back to Kyle for a second. You spent so much time watching CJ over the last 2 years in all these pressure-packed situations and just about any situation you could think of. What kind of advantage did that give him as far as, stepping right into this role?
Well, you'd like to think that there's an expectation of what to expect because you've seen it now. He's been in the program here and for a few years, and he's seen the good and the bad and the ugly, really. And a big part of life is knowing what to expect. And so he's been around, so he's at least seen it. Now he's got to go do it. It's a whole different thing when you're actually physically doing it than watching somebody else go through it. But I do think that allows you a little bit more of it, anticipation as opposed to reacting to the situations and seeing what's coming down the road.
Front row right, Austin Ward, Rivals, the podcast.
Ryan, I would think when you have 3 new starters on the offensive line and you're evaluating a quarterback battle, that probably consumed most of your thoughts, or at least the temptation would be for that. Do you feel like you were able to turn that off enough, as much as you wanted maybe, to think about all the other decisions that you had to make this month, or did it actually overwhelm everything else?
It was a big part of it, yeah, for sure. But I think, we've got really good people in place here that have allowed me to look at things from a wider lens, like you're talking about. And we've had several team meetings to talk about different situational things, and to be around the team. Try to get as many special teams as I possibly can, as opposed to jumping in the quarterback meetings. But it's been important to be involved with the quarterbacks because it's 2 guys who haven't played a whole bunch of football, and so I've been very much involved with that. I think Justin Fry has done an excellent job with the O-line in what he's done, and he's got a really good supporting cast helping him there with the O-line. But and that certainly takes a little heat off of me. But we know how important the quarterback is, and we have to make sure that's right. But I'd say overall for this camp, I've been allowed the opportunity to jump around.
Second row middle, Stephen Mead, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, just with Kyle again, I think Kyle was the first quarterback that you guys landed with you as the head coach here. He's kind of been here for the long haul a little bit. Have you learned anything about him that maybe you didn't know when you first started recruiting him through all this process? And
you learn more and more. I think we're about to learn more now that he's going to go be in a game where he is the starter. He started that one game when he was younger, but I think we'll learn more about him. But up until this point, somebody who does a really good job off the field, making connections in the locker room. I think a lot of the guys, look up to the way that he handles himself off the field. Very serious, hard worker. He's always in there watching film, and so now it's going to be exciting after all the work leading up to this to see him get on the field and play.
Behind him, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, we've heard and seen a number of receivers make plays out there. You guys have talked about a bunch of them. How many guys are you comfortable with going out there and playing meaningful snaps heading into week one?
That's a good question. I would say we're probably in the 5 to 6 range, in terms of depth. Not getting into names, but I think we would feel comfortable putting about 5 or 6 guys in the game there. 2 or 3 guys at tight ends, a whole bunch of guys at running back. So, we do have some depth, and it allows us an opportunity to be creative, too.
How much does it help to have that group that you are confident in, veterans coming back with a new quarterback, regardless of it?
It's critical. And, that's the thing that I've been trying to get with some of the wide receivers to make sure they understand is, when you have a guy who's doing it for the first time, you got to paint a really good picture. When it's zone, you got to really space it out. When it's man, you got to win, and that's important because certainly on third down and certainly in the red zone is where the quarterback's got to be on point. They got to do that's where they make all their money. And, we need the wide receivers to not only show their talent, but their experience and their maturity and until, they get into a rhythm, which they will.
Front row, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, the new clock rules in college football are now in effect with the no stoppage, or clock not stopping after first down. What do you think of that rule? How do you see it as sort of affecting things for you guys this year?
Yeah, I think we looked and did a quick study on the number of plays coming out of this weekend's game, and I think it was around 63, which is significant, I think. So we'll see how after a whole bunch of games are played this weekend what that number is, but it is going to shorten the game a little bit.
Do you see teams trying to use that against you? Or try to kind of ball control things? Teams have kind of done that in the past.
Yeah, I think teams try to do that, but ultimately you have to do what you're going to do to get into a rhythm, and like you said, if you're up on a team and you can shorten the game, I think that makes a lot of sense. But there are times where we do play in games where that is the game plan, where teams want to slow us down and keep the offense off the field, but you also have to be getting first downs and you have to run the football. So you want to get yourself into a rhythm on both sides of the ball without overdoing it. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see after this weekend what the numbers look like.
Right next door, Tim May podcast, Letterman Road.
Thank you, Jerry. Was there a point a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, where you pulled Kyle aside and you talked about having conversations with both of them, and just was there ever a moment where you say, hey, you're kind of blowing it here, kid? I mean, were there ever those kind of face-to-face kind of moments where, and you saw him step up?
We had constant conversations. Yeah. First off, daily conversations, but then there are some points where you visit with the guys and say, here's where you're at. Here's what I've seen. Here's where we need to get better. Never really drew lines in the sand during the preseason, but there were ebbs and flows, and there was definitely times where Devin did pull ahead. We made that clear. There was times where Kyle pulled ahead at different times, but ultimately where we are right now, we feel like the last 10 to 14 days that the consistency's allowed Kyle to be the starter. So again, it's healthy because it's great competition going on, but yeah, we've had to communicate that with guys and let them know, here are the things you're doing well, but here are the things you got to improve if you want to be competing at a high level and be the starter.
And when are the butterflies at the most in a coach's stomach, a head coach's stomach, gut? Is it that first game for starting? You understand what I'm saying? I mean, I would think the butterflies were circling around something else this time a year ago with CJ coming back as your returning starter, but how much does that add to the butterfly quotient?
Yeah, it doesn't help, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, every game there's butterflies, that's just the way it is, but you go off what you see in practice, and we have a team that's played football before, so that helps with that. When you have a bunch of guys, I was again thinking about where we were at 2 years ago when CJ went into that game against Minnesota. There was a ton of unknowns on defense, and you had a brand new quarterback. We talk about butterflies, a whole bunch of butterflies on that one. This one here, we're a little bit more veteran surrounding the quarterback. So, you go off what you see in practice, and if the guys perform like they do in practice and take care of the football, then it's going to be a good day. If they don't, then it's not going to be. That's just the bottom line. So, yeah, there's some unknown there, but there's also some knowns in other areas.
And you tell yourself right now, I didn't mean to ask a third, but patience is the key here. Meaning, I know you've got to be urgent and stuff, but he is going to be a first-time starter. Obviously,
I don't know if patience is the right word. Yeah, I mean, well, there has to be urgency, like you said, because first off, we got to win this game. I mean, this is not going to be easy to go on a road with brand new quarterbacks and all the different challenges that we have in a conference game. So, we got to take care of the football. We got to be able to tackle well. We got to run the football. We got to stop the run. We got to do those types of things. Play situational football, and the guys have to play well. They do. But that being said, I think each week we're going to have to identify the things that the guys are doing well, figure out how they did in game, how do they respond to certain situations, how did the team respond to them. Those are all things that we'll continue to evaluate and see where it goes. But to your point, we're not just going to bench somebody because they had a bad play. That's these guys both deserve to get out there and show what they have and work through mistakes.
Right behind him, Doug Lamreese, Kings of Columbus, the podcast.
Keenan Bailey and Corey Dennis in the box during the games, is that right? That's what it says on the sheet.
Yeah, that's right.
How did you guys come to that decision, and was there a consideration at all of maybe having Brian or Justin or Tony upstairs?
Yeah, there was when Kevin was up there, got great information, but felt like for the substitutional situations and being down on the field, we felt like Brian and Tony would be good down there talking to their guys. I think we'll have enough information coming from the booth. If we feel like we're not getting enough, then we'll make a change. But I feel like, and Mike's going to be up there as well, one of our graduate assistants, Mike Seleni, and he does a really good job, and he's really in tune with the front. Keenan will do a really good job with the back end and tying in the front end, and then Corey's always looking at the back end. So, I think those three guys can give us the information we need. Also, getting down in the field, what's going on. You can still see things down on the field. Like Justin will be able to see things. I think it's important to be around your players, and get around them and make sure the substitution patterns are right and adjusting in game. If we feel like we're not getting enough information, then we'll make an adjustment.
And then multiple running backs, you mentioned that. Do you have a sense of how you might like that to go here in the first game? Do you imagine a split? Can you play three? Is there a lead guy? And when you're rotating quarterbacks, does that have any effect on how you might rotate running backs?
I don't think those two go together, really. I think we're just going to play like we've done. That's why we've had two different fields, and the guys feel comfortable with each other. So I don't think that'll be an issue. But I also think, Trayvion's had a great camp. Mayans played well. Chip has done great. I think you're going to see all those three guys for sure. Dallin Hayden is run well. So, at least those four. Evan, we'll see if we can get to Evan. But, there's a lot of guys in that room. We're going to need all of them. We're going to need all those guys in the game. We're going to need those guys this season.
Front row, Phil Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
I assume you told those guys this morning, is that right?
Yes.
What was Kyle's reaction and what was Devin's reaction?
They both agreed. They felt like, I asked their feedback, and not to get into the details of it because it's it's in-house, but I kind of said, any feedback on that, and they said no, this is it fair? And they both agreed it was fair. I met with both of them together, and they both shared that they want to do what's best for the team, and that was great. And I said, there's going to be a lot that comes with this, just being at Ohio State and the media, and you have family, you have friends, you have a lot here. You guys just need to focus on doing the best you can, and at the end of the season, we'll come up for air on this thing. And that was the message, and they were both great. They're excited to play.
And you said that Devin will play. Does that mean he will play in the first half when the game, who knows how the game's going to play out, but are you going to make sure that he plays while the game is competitive?
As I sit here right now, that's what I'd like to do. Yeah, I'd like to get him in the game and meaningful snaps and let him play. Now, we got a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday practice here, and we'll keep tabs on how that goes. I assume that they'll continue to work the way they've worked and prepare the way they have done that, and run the plays that we're going to run in a game at a high level. If something were to change, then we'll make an adjustment from there. But yeah, I'd like to do that.
Just to clarify real quick, the offensive line, Josh Simmons at left tackle, Josh Fryer right tackle, is Carson Hinsman the center?
That's it right now, yes.
Second row left, Steve Hellwagon, 24/7.
I apologize, I didn't catch it. Is Hinsman the center, or what is the situation?
He is.
Hasn't played it down of college football to go shoved right in there as a redshirt freshman. Just your thought about him.
Yeah, again, you trying to keep me up at night again, like the rest of these guys? Jeez. Yeah, but everyone who comes into the program, has to go through this, and there's going to be good plays, there's going to be bad, but you go off of what you see, and we believe that Carson can do it because we've seen it on the field. We also feel like, Vic's done a nice job as well, and if we need to put him in the game, we will. But Carson deserves the opportunity to play. He's practiced well, and there'll be butterflies early on. But once you get into the meat of it, you start to work through those things, and before you know it, you've got some games under your belt.
True freshman, do you have a short list that we will definitely see on Saturday? It sounds like Carnell Tate could be at or near the top of that list. Just anybody that you're certain offense, defense, special teams is going to play.
Probably forget some. I think you'll probably see Arvell on special teams. I think you'll see Malik playing in the secondary. Carnell, you'll see a wide receiver. I'm going to forget a couple guys, but those three jump out.
And Luke, if you get a chance on the offensive line, perhaps?
Yeah.
Montgomery?
Yes. Yeah. Luke will get in the game.
Getting getting close to wrapping up, folks. We've got time for a few more right behind him. Jeff from Press Pros.
Depth. Talked a lot about depth here and there. Yeah, you got a new center, you got a new quarterback, you got two quarterbacks you want to play. How do you feel about the depth and experience this year based off the last couple of years, and maybe those butterflies for some things, but overall fewer?
Every year you're going to have new faces in some of these spots. Some of them are guys who have been in the program. Some of them are transfers. But like you said, there's a lot coming back, and that does at least allow you the opportunity to know these guys have been in games before, and that takes a little of the unknown out of it. And that is important. It gives you confidence going into a game like this.
Is the offensive line sort of with the three new starters? Does that still feel? You used the word decent depth, I think, a week or so ago. Is that from a strength?
Yeah, I think so. The good thing about Simmons is he's actually played in college games. Now, again, it's a little bit different. Josh has played in games, hasn't, and actually has played a significant amount of time. So that part's good. Carson hasn't, but it's time to get out there. And again, we have to go with what we see in practice every day. And if they continue to perform the way they've done in practice, we say you sink to the level of your training, then, they'll have an opportunity to grade out champions, and it'll be a good day for them. But it's time to get on the field and go see.
All right, Adam King, WBNS.
Obviously, going on the road in an opening game changes a lot of things. I think it's like the last 4 road games, Ohio State's trailed at the half when they opened. How do you not allow that to impact the quarterback? In your mind, knowing that struggling on the road is a natural thing in this.
Yeah, every play is going to matter even more. I think we talked about the plays. I think that is critical. But like you said, you can't panic when things aren't going well, but you also can't get out in front of yourselves when things are going well, or when things aren't going well. Then you can't panic. That's part of the game, and that's the thing about practice. When you have a good play or a bad play, it's on to the next one. Or now, when you're in a game, there's consequences or whatever for whatever you do, and that's going to be part of this, is understanding where you are in the game, managing games, not panicking, but also, again, like I said, you got to put, there's a couple years ago we played Indiana, we were up by a bunch at halftime, and then they came all the way back and almost caught us at the end. Those are all the types of situations. But I think my first year here, it was really close at halftime. Up there on a Thursday night, there was a dogfight, and we know we're going to get their best shot early on, and they have some really good talent coming in, so we have to be prepared for whatever. I always say this at halftime: you're either, it's either tied, you're winning, or you're losing. It's one of those three things, and you got to have a plan for all three. You can't get in a situation where you get to halftime and you're like, okay, we're not winning. What do we do? Well, we know that's an option here, so we have to be able to talk about that ahead of time, and I'll do that this week.
Got time for a couple more. Fourth row right, Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row.
Ryan, you talked a lot about that Oregon game and how influential that's been for you, looking back on CJ's time. That Minnesota game, is that right along with that in terms of what you learned from that experience, now having a new quarterback on the road in a Big Ten game?
Yeah, you learn every year. But every team is different. Every scenario is different. But you try to do the best you can based on your experiences, and that game was a learning experience for sure.
Deep left field, Jeremy Birmingham, Rivals.
Ryan, can you talk a little bit about Malik Hartford and what it seems like this has been one of the revelations of the fall camp, which is where he's taking his game to. What has he done to put himself, not just in the conversations of playing time, but like a lot of playing time? How has he taken that leap from being a guy that in the recruiting world was a good player, but no one really saw this?
No. We did in recruiting. That's why we recruited him here, and saw a guy who flashed on film and really was physical on film. I remember some of the highlights he had coming out of high school. Just a really fast, violent player. And then when he got here, you quickly learned that there was more to him than just that. Very mature approach. He sees it. He's got very good instincts. Put on a bunch of weight. We had a little friendly wager between Coach Knowles and I. I think he came in at 169, and I said by the time August camp hits, he's going to be over 190. Coach Knowles jumped on the bet, and I won. He came in at 192. So from January to August, he really got after it in the weight room, and he's gonna deserve the opportunity to play. He's done everything he's been asked to do. He still is a freshman, so we'll be smart early on in this game, but really excited about his future.
Where does he fit in that rotation at safety? I mean, obviously Lathan seems like he's pretty locked in. Sonny last week, he's the starter. Is it just a situational thing? Is it a guy that fits at any one of those spots? And how do you see that working?
Yeah, that's something that we've spent a long time talking about this offseason, is the right mix back there. The good news is that they're a little bit interchangeable, but for a freshman, we tried to keep him, at one spot, and so he can learn it. Jihad and Proc, those guys can move a little bit more, but we have moved them around a little bit just to create depth. But for him, in particular, he'll mostly be at the adjuster.
And final questions, fourth row left, Brendan Gulick, Buckeyes Now.
Coach, I'm glad you brought up Minnesota, and I was thinking last year about Notre Dame. The idea of playing a really meaningful game to open the season. It's a conference game. Do you talk much about what you learned from having those situations with a team that a couple years ago I know you were concerned about coming off of COVID, how that lack of experience was a problem? Are those conversations about, hey, this is what we learned against Minnesota, learned week one against Notre Dame, and applying it this time?
Yeah, and that's why one of the goals, that when we listed our goals this year, was to win the first game. That's not something usually we do here, but we have to win this first game, and so that's the first focus. And all those things will be into consideration. We have a team meeting before every Tuesday during the season, and those are the things that I'll be addressing. Yeah.
Great. Coach, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.